alive. They then stuffed his body in gasoline-filled tires and set it on fire. The bone-snapping, ligament-tearing torture device known as the rack was one of medieval Europe's favorite interrogation platforms. Essentially, it is a table that has two rollers on either side. The victim's ankles are fastened to one roller and the wrists are chained to the other. A handle and ratchet mechanism attached to one of the rollers is used to gradually increase the tension on the chains, inducing excruciating pain. Over time, the sufferer's joints are dislocated and eventually separated. One horrifying aspect of this torture is hearing the loud popping noises made by snapping cartilage, ligaments, or bones. Muscles are stretched to the point that they lose the ability to contract, rendering them useless. Rats will do anything to escape an uncomfortable situation, and torturers use this knowledge to their advantage in their sick experiments. A pottery bowl filled with rats are placed open side down on the naked body of a prisoner. Red-hot charcoals are then piled on top of the bowl, effectively heating up the pot and making it unbearable for the rats. The rats' only way out is to gnaw into the very bowels of the victim in an attempt to escape the heat. In one documented occasion, during the Dutch revolt in the 16th century, a prisoner of war endured this torture. After the rats ate through his flesh and scratched at his intestines, the hot coals were then inserted into his stomach, scalding his internal organs. The head crusher is a device that clamps down on the victim's head, smashing it between a metal plate and a rounded iron cap. As the executioner gradually twists the handle, the victim's skull is slowly crushed. Bone fragments from the skull can puncture the brain, causing spontaneous muscle spasms and, of course, brain hemorrhaging. If the person inflicting the pain wants to torment the prisoner even further, he could strike the metal cap with an iron rod, sending echoing pain throughout the person's body. In most cases, the victim is killed, but not before the jaw had been crushed and their eyes had popped from their sockets. The Tucker telephone was an electroshock apparatus used in Arkansas Tucker State Prison in the 1960s and 1970s. Inmate doctors would use this torture device on unruly prisoners. The device worked by placing a ground wire around the big toe of a prisoner while clamping the hot wire to the person's genitals. The wires were then hooked up to a telephone that had been modified to send electric shocks. As the phone was being cranked, piercing electrical currents were sent throughout the prisoner's body. In prison slang, a long-distance call was a series of electric shocks in a row. Any inmate that passed out from the experience would be splashed with cold water and shocked again, intensifying the agony. Similar to the rack, the German chair is a form of torture often used by the Syrian government against the rebels. When a detainee is captured, they are placed in a metal chair. Their legs and arms are secured to the seat, while the back of the chair is pulled back and down toward the ground. This causes severe stress on the spine, neck, and other limbs, often causing permanent damage. One man who managed to escape the Syrian torture cell claimed that they stripped him naked and hung him upside down in the chair for 8 to 12 hours a day for 4 days. He says the pain was so excruciating that he begged his captors to kill him. He still has uncontrollable twitching as a result of the torture. Flaying, also known as skinning, is an old torture that dates back to 883 BC. It involves different methods to remove the skin from the victim's entire body. The most common form of flaying is to use a knife, inserting the sharp blade just below the chin. The cuts start at the face and work all the way down to the toes. In some cases, the skin would be taken off in small sections and be performed slowly until completely done. What's left is a still living person with exposed muscles, ligaments, and bones, but the face skin still intact. A person could live a few hours up to a day after the skin removal process. Another method involved being severely sunburned and then having the skin peeled off. Lastly, captives would be placed in large cauldrons with only their heads sticking out. Then hot scalding water or oil would be poured inside, boiling their skin away. Impalement was and is one of the most gruesome ways of dying imaginable. The arms and legs are strapped to the ground by pegs, rendering the person immobile. A large oiled wooden stake is gradually forced into the body, usually into the anus. They made sure